Good day, everyone. This is Group 1 of BSN 37, and we will be presenting the motor coordination patterns, especially the responses to altered coordination. So, next slide po. Here are the group members po of Group 1, Ms. Barragon, Ms. Bayang, Mr. Cabaltera, Ms. Festejo, Ms. Gatwaban, Ms. Lapid, yours truly, Mr. Malazab, Ms. Pagayunan, and Ms. Villafranca. So, next slide po. Ayan, here are our topic outline. So we will gonna be discussing the musculoskeletal trauma or overuse, the degenerative bone disorders, and the metabolic bone disorders. So let's proceed first to the first topic.
So, good day everyone. I am Alexandra Lapid. Today, we will discuss about musculoskeletal trauma and overuse, focusing first on contusion, strain, and sprain. Next slide, please. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in 2017, musculoskeletal injuries are among the most common reason for seeking medical attention, often encountered by nurses in ER, critical care, and inpatient units. These injuries require management like casts, splints, braces, traction, or injury. For post-discharge patient, need extensive rehabilitation and follow-ups involving nurse in various settings like rehabilitation centers. Now, let's proceed with our main discussion on contusion, strain, and sprain. Next slide, please. First, let's discuss contusion. So, ang contusion ay isang soft tissue injury caused by blunt force such as blown kick or fall na nagre-resulta sa pag-rupture at pagdugo ng mga small blood vessels sa soft tissue layer kaya nagkakaroon ng bruising which appears as black and blue mark. Symptoms include pain, swelling, discoloration, limited range of motion, muscle weakness, and stiffness. Ang contusion ay kadalasang nag-heal within 1 to 2 weeks but in severe cases, maaari itong mas matagal. Next is the strain. Ang strain ay isang injury sa area ng muscle or tendon dahil sa pag-overuse, overstretching, or excessive stress known as muscle pull. Ang strain ay nakategorize into acute, which is from single injurious incident, or chronic, which are from repetitive injury sa affected side or due to improper management ng acute strain, kaya mas lumalala ito. Ngayon naman, let's discuss its 3 degree. In first degree, it involves mild stretching with no loss of range of motion, with symptoms like gradual tenderness and mild muscle spasm. Sa second degree naman, mayroong moderate stretching and partial tearing presenting with acute pain, tenderness, increased pain with passive range of motion, edema, significant muscle spasm, and ecchymosis or pagpapasa. And lastly, sa third degree, it involves severe stretching with complete tearing resulting in immediate pain, muscle spasm, ecchymosis, edema, and loss of function. For diagnosis, it often involves X-ray to rule out bone injury and MRI or ultrasound to identify tendon injuries. Lastly, we have the sprain, which is an injury to the ligament and tendon around the joint causing by twisting or hyperextensions. Sprains are graded from 1 to 3. Sa grade 1, madalas nagkakaroon dito ng mild stretching or slight tearing with symptoms like mild pain, edema, and local tenderness. Sa grade 2 naman, it involves partial tearing with increased pain with motion, edema, tenderness, joint instability, ecchymosis, and partial loss of normal joint function. And lastly, sa grade 3, it involves complete tear with rupture resulting in severe pain, edema, tenderness, ecchymosis, and abnormal joint motion. So, ang common site ng sprain ay ankle, knees, and wrist. Now we're done with the different injuries. Let's now proceed with its management. Next slide, please. In managing musculoskeletal injuries, ang ating focus ay sa prevention ng further damage at promotion ng healing. The RICE method or the rest, ice, compression, and elevation is crucial in initial management. We have to educate our client first to rest the injured area to avoid further stress and promote healing. Next, apply ice intermittently na hindi lalagpas sa 20 minutes para maiwasan ng pagkakaroon ng skin damage from excessive cold within first 20 to 72 hours to promote vasoconstriction, decreasing the bleeding, edema, and discomfort. And then use compression with an elastic bandage to control bleeding and reduce edema. And then lastly, elevate the injured area above the heart level para makontrol natin yung swelling. In severe injuries naman, immobilization with splint, braces, or cast may be necessary para ma-maintain yung stability nito. And for pain management, NSAIDs are often prescribed to reduce inflammation and alleviate pain. Additionally, frequent monitoring din ng neurovascular status ay crucial. This assessment checks for adequate blood flow and nerve function sa injured area, helping para maiwasan yung complication like acute compartment syndrome wherein increase yung pressure within the muscle compartment na nagre-reduce sa blood flow, potentially causing severe damage. That ends our discussion regarding the first injuries. Let's continue with the next reporter.
Ayan, so now let's go and discuss the injuries to the tendons, ligaments, and menisci. So next slide po. Let's define first the three terms. So when we say tendons, these are fibrous tissue na nagko-connect sa muscle at bone natin. While for the ligaments, these are bundles ng collagen fibrils natin na nagko-connect from bone to another bone. And yung menisci naman natin, these are the two semilunar pads ng fibrocartilages na nakikita sa knee natin, located on the right and left side ng proximal tibia natin sa pagitan ng tibia at saka ng femur. So next slide po. Ayan, so we will gonna be discussing 6 diseases here. So the first two diseases here na yung rotator cuff tears and epicondylitis, this refers to the tendons, injuries to the tendons. So kapag sinabi natin rotator cuff tears, may injury tayo sa rotator cuff. Ay yung rotator cuff natin, nakikita siya sa shoulder natin. These are composed of 4 muscles na nagsasama-sama to form yung tendons natin para ma-cover yung head ng humerus o yung arm natin para matulungan na i-raise o i-rotate natin yung arm natin. So kapag napunit yon, rotator cuff tears yung tawag. So next yung epicondylitis. These are yung chronic painful condition na ang cause niya ay yung excessive motion sa forearm naman natin. Pwede ito mag-result sa inflammation since tendon niya ito. Ang term natin doon ay tendonitis. Or kaya naman may minor tears na ang origin niya mismo ay pwedeng sa lateral or sa medial epicondyles natin. So may dalawa yan. Yung una is yung medial epicondylitis. Ito yung tinatawag natin golfer's elbow. Nangyayari ito kapag repetitive yung wrist flexion natin at saka pronation ng forearms. While for the lateral epicondylitis naman, this refers to the tennis elbow. So these are caused by repetitive extension ng ating wrist with supination ng ating forearm. So this commonly occurs 7 times more than yung sa medial epicondylitis natin. So next slide po. Ayan. So another tendon here is the rupture of Achilles tendon, which is considered one of the strongest tendons sa katawan natin. Ayan. So ang nangyayari dito, napupunit yung Achilles tendon nga natin sa paa due to pushing off o yung unexpected na dorsiflexion ng foot at saka ng ankle natin. So kadalasan nangyayari ito kapag sa mga active young to middle-aged adults and commonly sa mga males. So vulnerable yung injury na to kasi limited lang yung blood supply na meron siya, so hindi agad-agad na mag-heal. And also, ito yung ginagamit natin para maging mobile tayo o makapaglakad. So may high tension din na ilalagay dito sa tendons na to. So next is yung sa menisci natin. Mayroon tayong tinatawag na meniscal injury. So ito yung injury natin sa menisci mismo o yung two semilunar pads nga ng fibrocartilages na makikita sa knee natin. So eto, ang nangyayari kasi dito, yung menisci natin, ang function niya mismo ay maging shock absorbers sa knee natin. So kapag tayo tumatalon, gano'n, so siya yung nag-a-absorb din ng shock para hindi mapersa yung bones natin, yung muscles, at saka yung mga tendons, cartilages, and ligaments. So dito, yung peripheral tear down ng menisci, may small amount lang siya ng blood flow. So mag-a-allow siya na mag-heal yun, pero matagal kasi limited lang yung supply ng blood flow. So next slide po. Ayan, let's go to the ligaments naman. Sa collateral ligament, this involves yung LCL o yung lateral collateral ligament and yung MCL which is medial collateral ligament. Ang nangyayari dito kapag yung mali yung pagbagsak natin, it means na yung foot natin firmly planted siya pero yung knee natin is na-struck. Kapag na-struck siya or mali yung pagkakabagsak, pag medially, ang madadamage is yung LCL. Pero pag laterally siya na-struck yung knee natin, ang mapupunit dun or ang mai-injure ay yung MCL natin. So, ang kadalasan yung mga patient nagre-report sila ng acute onset of pain, joint tenderness, joint instability, at inability to walk without assistance. Ayan, sa cruciate ligament naman natin, sa knee pa rin natin 'to, and ang affectations nito ay anterior cruciate ligament and posterior cruciate ligament. Dito, halos same lang sila, mali din yung pagkakabagsak or pagkakatalon ng pasyente natin. So, yung foot niya firmly planted, pero yung leg niya yung nagsu-sustain ng direct force. Kapag nagsustain yung leg natin ng direct force forward, ang madadamage ay yung ACL. Pero pag backward naman, ang madadamage natin ay yung PCL. So, next slide po. So, ang mga kadalasang cause nito ay due to intrinsic or extrinsic factors. Sa mga intrinsic factors, ito yung mga age-related. 'Di ba alam naman natin na may wear and tear nga tayo habang tumatanda, and also sa genetics din. Then yung sa extrinsic factor naman, pwede ito sa overuse, sa fracture, or yung sa lifestyle ng patient natin, kung athlete ba siya, kung ah, kasama ba sa trabaho niya yung overuse ng muscles, ayan. So for the assessment, pinag-isa ko na lang din 'to. So for the physical examination, bilateral assessment palagi tayo. Kasi titingnan natin kung may decreased ROM or strength doon sa affected site or tissue or limb na nag-sustain ng injury. So ang kadalasan dito kapag minove natin yung part na yon, may pain. And sometimes puwede din magkaroon ng bleeding sa joint natin which is termed yung hemarthrosis. So puwede siyang namamaga tingnan, ayan. So for the specific assessment natin, kapag rotator cuff tears, eto yung difficulty sleeping on the affected side. Ito yung one of the manifestation niya kasi shoulder nga 'di ba? Nandun yung pressure natin kapag naka-side lying tayo. Sa ACL or PCL injury naman, yung patient nagre-report sila na parang may nararamdaman sila or naririnig na nag-pop dun sa tuhod nila. And kapag torn pa nga yung ACL or yung PCL natin, yun nga may pain, joint stability, tapos hirap din sila mag-weight bearing o i-abante, itukod yung tuhod nila and paa nila. Ayan, for the meniscal injury naman, dito kasi nagiging loose yung mga cartilage. So puwede silang mag-sleep between yung femur at saka yung tibia natin. So, ang pasyente natin hindi nila ma-extend yung leg nila and makakarinig pa sila dito ng click. While kapag yung cartilage naman na loose ay sa front and back ng knee natin, tapos lateral sila naging loose nga, magi-slide yan between sa bones natin tapos papagitna siya sa mga condyles. So, hindi na ma-e-extend or mafe-flex fully yung leg. So, yung patient magre-report siya na parang nala-lock yung knee niya. Ayan, if torn, magkakaroon ng effect yan kasi magi-increase yung synovial fluid and magiging edematous yung knee natin. For the ruptured Achilles tendon naman, 'di ba, kadalasan mali yung pagbagsak nito. So, popping sound or a giving way sensation on the posterior heel natin. So, immediate pain agad yung mararamdaman nito pero gradually subsides. Then yung ability to plantar flex nagde-decrease siya, while yung ability naman to dorsiflex is improved kasi nga ang napunit dito ay yung Achilles tendon natin. So, next slide po. For the diagnostic examinations, ito yung imaging natin. So for X-ray, MRI, and musculoskeletal ultrasound, ito yung ginagamit para ma-confirm natin yung diagnosis and malaman natin kung gaano kalala yung injury. While yung arthrography with MRI or kaya CT scan, ito mas sensitive siya sa mga certain na mga punit or sira or injury sa mga tendons, ligaments, and menisci. Ayan, for the medical management, ito ay depende sa symptoms, sa type of tear, sa age, sa general health, at saka sa activity level. Depende kung ano nga yung, pinaka-etiology nung sa pasyente and sa activity niya rin. So, sa initial conservative management natin, RICE method katulad ng diniscuss kanina and protect from further injury. Tapos i-immobilize din natin siya or ipahinga tapos i-modify natin yung activities, i-limit lang natin. Tapos for pain management, puwede tayong gumamit ng NSAIDs or analgesics. Siyempre kapag NSAIDs alam naman natin na taken with food 'yan to decrease GI, side effects. And kapag, last resort na ng pasyente yung paggamit ng corticosteroid injections sa mga affected area lalo na kapag sa tendons yung apektado kasi may degenerative effects ito. Pero ang corticosteroids natin, nagde-decrease din siya ng inflammation. Ayan, for the PT, sila yung magsu-supervise ng ating rehabilitation exercises and also yung pasyente natin puwede sila gumamit ng assistive devices such as yung braces, crutches, splints, and et cetera. So, ang ROM natin or range of motion natin dito ay dapat progressive, pati yung weight bearing natin ay progressive din. So, mag-i-start muna tayo sa hindi natin sila gagamitin, so non-weight bearing, ayan. Then kapag nalagyan na ng brace, puwede na tayong mag-weight bear pero as tolerated lang. Then iga-gradual pa yung increase natin ng, range of motion papunta sa full weight bearing or yung makakalakad na siya ng normal. Kailangan 'to kasi para ma-strengthen pa rin yung mga supportive muscles natin and para hindi na rin ma-strain yung mga ligaments. So kapag may hemarthrosis or may severe joint effusion, ibig sabihin may bleeding or kaya increase synovial fluid, puwede natin yun i-aspirate para mabawasan yung edema. So for the surgical management, nandito yung open versus mini open versus arthroscopic. Lahat ito may limited evidence lang kung, may clinically important benefits ba siya or wala. So, kadalasan kailangan mag-near normal joint range of motion muna bago mag-schedule ng surgery. So, puwede siyang gumamit ng graft or puwede ring hindi, depende sa severity nung, client nung injury ng client natin. So, commonly ginagamit ito ng mga patients or nagre-resort yung mga patients dito kapag wala na silang response sa non-operative, management. So, next slide po. Ang mga gumagamit din nito ay yung mga patients na gusto nila may faster symptom management. Kasi nga baka kailangan nila magtrabaho or part yun ng trabaho nila. And patients who have severe pain, ibig sabihin hindi na nakokontrol ng mga, pain meds natin. And also yung mga younger patients and athletes, since gusto nila i-prevent yung risk ng re-injury and osteoarthritis and sila din yung pinaka-active during this time. So sa post-op care natin, mag-a-administer tayo ng oral analgesics and i-immobilize natin yung, area of affectation with sling, brace, or cast for 4 to 6 weeks pero depende ito sa severity. So i-restrict muna natin yung exercise para ma-prevent yung mga complications natin which is commonly yung, joint effusion nga. So ire-refer pa din natin sila sa PT for progressive ROM at saka weight bearing. Then sa rehab naman dito is for the RCT o yung rotator cuff tears natin, usually 3 to 6 months yon. Pero kapag yung severe na LCL injury natin tapos unstable na yung knee natin, gagamit sila ng derotational brace habang nag-e-engage sila sa mga sports para ma-prevent yung re-injury nga natin. Ayan, tapos puwede din 'tong gamitin ng multiple electrophysical modalities pero eto ay kailangan pa na research further para ma-validate kung may effect nga ba siya. So, dito nakapaloob yung mga transcutaneous electrical nerve stimulation, yung mga extracorporeal shockwave therapy at saka yung laser therapy na kung saan gumagamit sila ng electricity nga para, ma-stimulate yung mga nasirang, part ng tendons, ligaments, and ng menisci. Ayan, for the nursing management, kailangan mag-provide tayo ng comfort measures sa pain aside from giving medication. So, yung mga non-pharmacologic, management ng pain natin. Tapos i-educate din natin yung patient about sa use ng mga ambulatory devices, sa activity limitation din para ma-promote agad yung healing. Then yung paggamit ng, analgesics natin tapos ng NSAIDs natin since may mga side effects yan. Sa wound care lalo na kapag post-op, patient. Then sa cold therapy yung pag-apply nga ng ice. And lastly, sa signs and symptoms ng possible complications natin, like for example, yung venous thromboembolism since immobile nga yung part na i-immobilize nga natin yung client natin so prone sila mag-develop ng mga DVT. Ayan. So that's it for the injuries to tendons, ligaments, and menisci. So let's proceed to the next topic po.
Ayan. So let us now proceed with fractures and dislocations. So next slide po. Starting with fractures. So fractures is a complete or incomplete disruption in the continuity of bone structure and is defined according to its type and extent. So yung fractures natin is nangyayari siya kapag yung bone natin is subjected to stress greater than it can absorb. So common cause niya would be yung mga direct blows, crushing forces, sudden twisting motions, and extreme muscle contractions. So kapag yung bone natin is broken siya, syempre yung adjacent structures niya affected din. And this may result in edema, hemorrhage, dislocations, ruptured tendons, and damaged blood vessels. So, yung types of fractures natin, meron tayong tatlo. Una is yung closed fracture or simple fracture. So, yung fracture na to, it does not cause a break in the skin. So, kumbaga, hindi naman siya nagpe-penetrate directly. So, kapag open fracture naman, ito na yung fracture, which is yung skin or yung mucous membrane extends to the fractured bone. So, meron tayong nangyayaring penetration. And it is divided also into 3 types. So, type 1, type 2, and type 3. So, ito yung Gostillo-Anderson system. So, kapag type 1, ito yung clean wound natin, less than 1 centimeter long, and simple lang yung fracture pattern niya. Kapag type 2 naman, larger wound na siya with minimal soft tissue damage, and there are no flaps or avulsions. And then yung type 3, ito na yung most severe type natin. And commonly sa open fracture, meron na siyang contamination and has extensive soft tissue damage. And commonly, nag-involve siya ng vascular injury. Then last natin is yung intra-articular fracture. So yung intra-articular fracture natin, nag-extend siya into the joint surface of a bone. So dahil dito, it often leads to early post-traumatic osteoarthritis sa patients. So next slide po. So, yung common clinical manifestations natin, unang-una is syempre yung pain and loss of function on the affected extremity. Then, meron din tayong deformity, commonly caused by displacement, angulation, or rotation ng fractured fragments. Then, meron din tayong shortening of the extremity, lalong-lalo na sa case ng fractured long bones kasi nagkakaroon ng compression and sometimes din dahil sa muscle spasms sa distal and proximal site ng fracture. So, nag-overlap ito causing nung shortening. Then meron din tayong crepitus dahil dun sa rubbing of the bone fragments against each other. And then yung localized edema and ecchymosis as a result ng trauma and bleeding sa tissues ng fractured bone. Then for our emergency management, unang-una syempre yung immobilization. Lagi-lagi yan kapag fracture yung case ng patient. Kailangan ma-apply natin yung splint, bandage, or sling kahit alin doon para ma-minimize natin yung movement ng fractured fragments and maiwasan yung further injury to patient. The neurovascular assessment, syempre, para ma-determine natin yung adequacy ng peripheral tissue perfusion and nerve function. Kasi baka hindi magkaroon ng adequate tissue perfusion and this would further complicate yung condition ni patient. Then sterile dressing, especially kapag open yung fracture natin kasi kailangan matakpan natin or makover natin yung wound to achieve yung homeostasis sa injury site and also para ma-prevent natin yung contamination lalo sa deeper tissues. So sa medical management natin, meron tayong fracture reduction. It refers to the restoration of bone fragments to anatomic realignment and positioning with immobilization. So there are 2 types of reduction. Una is yung open reduction or yung OREFT, then yung closed reduction. So kapag open reduction, ito yung nagre-require ng surgical approach. So kumbaga, talagang nagkakaroon tayo ng surgery dun sa affected extremity, then doon tayo nagka-conduct ng immobilization. So, commonly, naglalagay tayo ng metal, screws. So, makikita niyo, di ba, yung mga patients na parang may mga metal na tumatagos dun sa extremities nila or sa limbs. Then, kapag close reduction naman, ito, yung anatomic alignment is ginagawa lang siya through manipulation or manual traction. So, nakita niyo parang binabali-bali yung buto. Pero, hindi naman siya totally talaga nababali kasi nire-realign lang natin yung buto para ma-resolve yung fracture ni patient. Then immobilization, ayan, external fixation lang kagaya ng nasabi kanina, bandage, cast, splints, external fixators, and continuous traction. Ayun lang yung ginagawa natin. Then, syempre, maintaining and restoring function. So, ni-elevate natin yung injured extremity in applying ice or yung RICE method natin. Syempre, monitoring ng neurovascular status, isometric and muscle setting exercises. And syempre, ini-encourage natin si patient na mag-participate pa din sa ADLs. Then, next slide po. So with our nursing management, kapag closed fracture, more on patient education siya. Kasi kailangan maturuan natin si patient ng proper methods to control yung pain na nararanasan niya and edema. Then yung exercises para ma-promote pa rin natin yung and ma-maintain yung health ng unaffected area. Kasi syempre kapag may fracture, yung unaffected area, dun siya mas magde-depend and yun yung mas gagamitin niya. Then preventive measures para ma-avoid yung further stress dun sa fractured area. Then self-care, medication information, syempre of course for the side effects. Then monitoring of potential complications. Then open fractures naman, syempre dito may mas gumagamit na tayo ng medications. Dito may antibiotics and tetanus toxoid kasi nga open na yung fracture, merong penetration. Then wound irrigation, then meron din tayong elevation ng affected extremity, kagaya ulit, neurovascular status assessment and monitor ng vital signs, lalong-lalo na yung signs of infection. Then meron din tayong proceed na tayo with fracture healing and complications. So, syempre sa fracture, yung healing natin, maraming factors na nakaka-influence dito sa time frame ng healing process. So, kapag yung fracture healing natin is disrupted, maaaring yung bone union or alignment natin is delayed or talagang nag-stop na siya completely. So, commonly, madami siyang cause kagaya ng early complications and delayed complications. So, sa early complications natin, meron tayong hypovolemic or traumatic shock. Kasi di ba pag open fracture, usually may hemorrhage tayong nararanasan. Then fat embolism syndrome, kapag yung fat emboli natin is nag-enter na sa circulation following yung ating orthopedic trauma. Then acute compartment syndrome, nabanggit na rin kanina, nagkakaroon ng elevation of pressure within the anatomic compartment. But that is above the normal perfusion pressure. Then other early complications, nabanggit na rin DVT, lalong-lalo na dahil sa reduced skeletal muscle contractions and yung bed resty patient. Then disseminated intravascular coagulation dahil sa widespread hemorrhage and microthrombosis with ischemia. Then sa delayed complications natin, meron tayong delayed union, non-union, and malunion. So kapag delayed union, yung healing is hindi siya nag-occur dun sa ina-expect natin na time frame. Pero meron pa din siyang healing, although prolonged nga lang siya, but eventually, gumagaling pa din siya. Kapag non-union naman, meron tayong incomplete healing of a fracture and failure of the ends of fractured bone to unite. Kapag malunion naman, meron tayong healing ng fractured bone, kaya nga lang mal-aligned yung position nito. Then meron tayong next, vascular necrosis of the bone or osteonecrosis. So kapag yung bone natin, it loses its blood supply and dies. Kaya nagkakaroon ng necrosis. Kaya chinecheck natin yung neurovascular status ni patient. Then complex regional pain syndrome, meron tayong regional pain in a limb that is disproportionate. And lastly is yung heterotopic ossification, which is characterized by a pain and joint stiffness causing yung decreased range of motion ni patient. So, ayun lang sa fracture. Proceed na po tayo sa dislocation. So, next reporter po.
So, hello po. So, dito sa dislocation, ito sa musculoskeletal fractures occurs when the bone is displaced from its normal function at the joint and often due to trauma or injury. Hindi natin pwedeng i-push or i-force yung dislocation joint because it will lead sa mga complication. So, dito sa dislocation tear, the tissue around your joints, so ito yung mga muscle. Yung muscle na da-damage yan can also contribute to instability ng joint ng patient natin. And yung nerves, it is heal slowly, sometimes over many months, but it depends sa patients natin sa response sa body niya. Lalo na kung autoimmune yung patient natin, mabagal talaga yung healing process. And yung tendons naman, it is which connect yung muscles to bones, di ba? And then sa blood vessels, ito yung nagko-contribute niyan sa tissue damage na nagsusupply ng oxygen and nutrients to the surrounding tissue as well as yung assisting in the repair and healing process po ng patient natin. And then sa types ng dislocation, so may two types tayo yan, which is yung complete dislocation, luxation, and then yung subluxation. So dito sa complete dislocation. It is also known as luxation, occurs when the joint surfaces completely separate sa each other. And then sa subluxation naman, it is a partial dislocation. So of a joint and where the bones are partially in contact with each other. And then sa next slide po please. And then, ito po yung mga clinical manifestation na makikita natin sa mga patient natin na nagkakaroon ng dislocation. So, yung pain, swelling, bruising, tsaka yung joint nagkakaroon ng look noticeable different or outer space. Syempre, mahalata naman natin na may mga pagbabago or pamamaga dun sa part na nagkaroon ng dislocation. And being unable to move or use yung joint, and then feeling instability or like the joint is weaker than usual. Like kunyari, syempre nagkaroon ng trauma dun sa part na yon, so magkakaroon talaga ng immobility. And then sa nursing management, so kailangan natin, so pain management, so dito mag-a-administer tayo ng mga medication such as yung NSAIDs and yung mga utilized non-pharmacologic methods such as yung mga pain relief, such as yung deep breathing technique and yung mga meditation para mag-help to reduce yung stress ng patient natin and yung proper overall well-being ng patients natin na para ma-reduce yung pain niya. And then sa early mobilization naman, ito i-assess natin yung safe ambulation ng patient natin like exercise and para ma-promote yung healing and magkaroon ng regain functions. And then syempre as a nurse, kailangan natin i-educate yung patient natin, mag-instruct tayo on how proper use yung mga assistive devices, activity restriction, wound care, and yung mga signs of potential complications na kaya naman gawin ng patient natin and yung kasama niya. And then yun, next slide po for next reporter. Thank you.
Okay, para naman sa osteoarthritis, ito yung isa sa mga degenerative bone disorder natin. So, osteoarthritis, pag sinabi natin osteoarthritis, it is a degenerative condition sa musculoskeletal natin where it affects our bone and joints. Ito yung kapag nag-wear down na yun over time yung mga joints, which is common sa mga older people. May joints and cartilage tayo, di ba? And yung cartilage na yun, yung smooth tissue na nagko-cover dun sa end ng bones natin, which allow them to move easily against each other. Walang inflammation na nangyayari sa osteoarthritis unlike sa ibang ibang joint diseases kasi di siya more on swelling. More on ano lang siya, rather sa gradual wearing ng joints over time. So, meron tayong two types ng osteoarthritis. Meron tayong primary or idiopathic osteoarthritis and secondary osteoarthritis. Pag sinabi natin primary osteoarthritis, simply, it is mostly due to the aging and ayun lang, natural pag-wear down and tear lang nung joints natin over time. Pag naman sinabing secondary osteoarthritis, ito yung kapag from injury, inflammatory diseases like rheumatoid arthritis, ito yung may cause talaga na from, kunwari nga, injury, tas mga inflammatory diseases. So, dito naman sa next slide po. Okay, pag sa pathophysiology naman ng osteoarthritis, so it all starts with the initial trigger such as yung mechanical injury, yung genetic hormonal factors, yung previous joint damage and others. And dahil doon, yung mga cells sa cartilage natin ng bone na tinatawag na chondrocyte, nagre-react yun sa mga trigger na yun na nagre-lead sa release ng cytokines na tinatawag. Sila yung mga signaling molecules na nire-release ng mga chondrocytes natin para i-stimulate yung production ng mga enzymes katulad ng proteolytic enzyme, metalloproteases, and collagenase. Yung mga enzymes na yon, sila yung nagbe-breakdown ng cartilage na nagkakos ng damage dito kaya mas nagiging susceptible lalo yung joints natin to further injury. Then the cycle just repeats ganun with the continued chondrocyte response and yung enzyme release again, tas nagkakos lalo ng damage. So sa mga etiology, eto naman yung una, aging, syempre, kasi as we age, mas lalo nagde-degenerate na yung bone natin. As gender, sinasabi nila na yung mas prone daw yung mga women commonly affected ng osteoarthritis. Tapos sinasabi na mas higher daw yung prevalence ng osteoarthritis sa mga Hispanic and African American women. Tapos obesity, tapos occupational stress, sports activities, tapos previous joint injuries, muscle weakness, and genetics. Next slide, please. Tas, eto naman yung clinical manifestation ng osteoarthritis. Unang-una, syempre pain kasi na yun nga, imaginein mo numinipis yung cartilage mo nun. So, instead na sila yung rub against each other, yun yung nagka-cause ng pain lalo and mas nag-a-aggravate yan kapag kumikilos yung isang tao na may osteoarthritis or nag-e-exercise and nare-relieve lang yun by rest. Tapos meron ding stiffness, tapos functional impairment, siyempre since masakit, meron difficulty ng performing daily activities dahil nga dun sa stiffness din at the same time. Tapos sa progression, yung symptoms, it usually starts gradually, and worsen over multiple years. Tapos sa physical examination naman, yung mga findings na puwedeng makita ay joint enlargement kasi ayun nga, lumalaki yung body natin nagta-try na i-repair yung damage dun sa yung damage na cartilage. So, the process leads to the formation of new bone around the joint kaya nag-i-increase din yung fluid at the same time dun sa joint natin kaya nagka-cause yun ng enlargement nila. And meron tayong decreased range of motion kasi ayun, nagkakaroon sila ng limited, ability to move the joint dahil nga sa nagkakaroon ng, ayun, dahil sa pain din at the same time. And, yung damaged cartilage natin, so nagkakaroon lalo ng formation ng mga bone. And kaya yun, mas nahihirapan silang kumilos. Ito yung mga commonly affected na joints. Meron tayong mga weight-bearing joints, yung hip, knees, cervical, and lumbar spine. Yung mga hand joints natin, including yung proximal interphalangeal, yung distal interphalangeal, tas yung mga bony enlargement natin sa mga hands natin, like yung Herbeden nodes, tas yung Bouchard's nodes. And at the same time, ito yun, na-mention na rin kanina yung crepitus, yung parang cracking sound na maririnig mo din sa mga joints. Tas joint effusion, may mild swelling kasi nga 'di ba nagkakaroon ng extra increase ng fluid dun sa joint kaya ayun, nagkakaroon ng mild swelling. Tas ayun, no systemic symptoms kasi ayun, hindi naman nagka-cause ng symptoms yun na puwedeng maka-affect ng buong body natin. So ayun, next slide. Dito naman sa, assessment and diagnostic findings, may dalawang tools lang na ginagamit for diagnostic, yung blood test pero hindi siya useful for diagnosing osteoarthritis. Occasionally used to rule out immune diseases such as rheumatoid is arthritis. Tas next yung X-rays. Ayan, eto talaga yung ginagamit talaga para, ma-identify yung mga characteristic changes na associated sa osteoarthritis. And it might show narrowing of the joint space, formation ng mga osteophytes, tas yung dense thickened subchondral bone. Next slide. For the medical management naman, syempre ang pinaka-goal natin i-reduce yung pain and stiffness and i-maintain and improve yung joint mobility ng mga taong may osteoarthritis. And ito yung mga unang management, syempre mahalaga yung exercise kahit saan naman makita natin yung exercise kasi, it helps to strengthens our muscles, improves flexibility, helps control weight, and reduces pain. And weight loss at the same time kasi 'di ba 'pag too much weight puwede mag-cause yun ng more stress dun sa mga joints natin na puwedeng mag-cause lalo ng pain sa mga taong may osteoarthritis. And occupational and physical therapy para na mag-a-assist sa kanila in adopting self-management strategies. Tas mga, orthotic devices and walking aids, eto meron tayong mga wedge insoles, knee braces, mga similar modalities na puwedeng mag-correct ng mga biochemical abnormalities and, mag-reduce ng joint stress. And meron tayong mga complementary therapies like massage, yoga, pulse electromagnetic fields, TNS, mga music therapy, and ibang methods na puwedeng mag-help para mag-offer ng relief sa patient na may osteoarthritis. Ayun, consideration, yung mga therapies na 'to should complement standard care and not interfere with medications. Use is encouraged if they enhance comfort, mobility, and function according to the American College of Rheumatology. Ayun yung source. Next slide. So, with the pharmacology, siyempre ang pinaka-goal lang dito, symptom management and pain control. So, merong mga medication din na pina-prescribe sa kanila and ito yung mga common medication. Siyempre acetaminophen, mga analgesic therapy para sa mga, osteoarthritic patient. Tapos NSAIDs and COX-2 inhibitors, alam naman natin 'yan kung ano 'yan. Tramadol, ayan. Ito yung non-opioid medication na Used for pain relief then, opioids, eto, more on sa mga severe cases na 'to, intra-articular corticosteroid na ini-inject directly sa joint para sa pain relief. Mga topical analgesics yung mga pinapahid like yung capsaicin methyl salicylate and diaclofenac sodium gel na para sa mga localized pain relief, and mga other medications like your methotrexate, colchicine, and ayun. Tapos meron ding other like yung glucosamine and chondroitin and yung viscosupplementation. 'Yan, next slide please. And for the nursing management, ang unang-una diyan siyempre pain management, i-prioritize natin yung paano ma-alleviate yung pain para ma-enhance pa rin yung comfort ng patient natin and yung overall functioning nila. And functional improvement siyempre mahalaga din since meron ngang pain and stiffness, mahihirapan sila na gawin yung mga daily activities nila. So focus tayo dun sa mga intervention na yun na puwedeng improve nung ability ng mga taong may osteoarthritis para ma-perform pa rin nila yung mga daily activities nila and to maintain independence siyempre. And education siyempre di mawawala, ensure patients understand yung disease process, yung symptom management, strategies, and yung importance nung pag-adhere sa mga treatment plan. Tas weight loss and exercise, nabanggit ko na rin kanina, and assistive devices and mobility aids, ayun nga yung mga katulad ng mga wedge insoles, mga knee brackets, gano'n para ma-reduce yung stress na napupunta sa joint natin since masakit nga yun. And discussion on complementary therapies, ayun, advice natin sila na gumamit ng mga alternative and integrative health therapies para ayun, for additional pain relief options. And dito naman mayroong tinatawag na arthroplasty. Simple yung eto yung surgical management na kung saan is a surgery that is used for severe joint pain and disability kung saan yung damaged joint is being replaced with artificial materials. Pero siyempre di lahat ay candidate para sa ganitong, um, option or route, gano'n. Um, May kino-consider din na factor to help decide if it's needed. Nandiyan na yung age, siyempre iko-consider 'yan, yung activity level, and yung pain severity. So ayun, during the procedure ganito yung nangyayari lang 'yan during arthroplasty. Ang nangyayari diyan, nire-remove nila yung unhealthy joint tapos pinapalitan ng metal or mga synthetic na parts. Tas may iba't ibang method to secure the parts in place. Ayun, it's a common option for severe cases like osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, joint trauma, and mga congenital deformities. Ayun lang. I'm passing the floor to the next reporter. Thank you.
So ayan, proceed naman po tayo sa metabolic bone disorder which is under po neto yung osteoporosis. So yung osteoporosis po, siya po yung pinaka-common bone disease worldwide, causing over 1.5 million fracture annually. So dito, nire-required talaga yung hospitalization. Yung pinaka-main consequence neto is yung bone fracture. So kumbaga isa bawat sa 3 babae, then isa din bawat sa 5 lalaki na mahigit 50 years old yung nagkakaroon ng fracture ng dulot ng osteoporosis. So next slide po. So ayan, sa prevention naman po, para ma-prevent yung osteoporosis, para sa adolescent and young adult, dapat malaman nila yung mga risk factors and i-maintain nila yung diet rich sa calcium and vitamin D. Then exercise regularly and avoid nila yung mga smoking, alcohol, caffeine, and yung carbonated drinks. So para naman sa mga menopausal and postmenopausal women, dapat assess nila yung mga bahay nila for hazards, na practice din nila yung good body mechanics and mag-take sila ng appropriate supplements and medication. And then mag-engage din sila sa balance exercise and review their health condition sa kanilang mga health provider. Para naman sa mga lalaki, dapat maintindihan nila yung mga specific risk factors, participate din sila sa mga screening and discuss din nila yung medication options sa kanilang mga health provider. So next slide po. So for pathophysiology naman sa osteoporosis, nagre-result siya ng reduced bone mass and weaker bone structure due to increased bone resorption and decreased formation. So nangyayari yung sa bones, yung brittle and yung prone sa fracture, especially sa kanilang mga spine, hip, tsaka sa wrist. So sa vertebral fracture naman, nagkakos siya ng kyphosis, height loss, and postural changes. So sa bone loss, nagsisimula siya after ng 4th decade and nag-accelerate siya after menopause due to hormonal changes with significant bone mass loss sa first 5 years. So sa postmenopause, over half of women over 50 na nakikita dito yung signs ng osteopenia. So next slide po. So sa risk factor naman po ng osteoporosis, include dito yung demographic factor such as being small-framed, Asian, Caucasian women with African and American women also risk din sila sa higher rates ng certain disease and lactose intolerance sila. So sa medical factors naman, include dito yung paggamit ng aromatase inhibitors, bariatric surgery, and gastrointestinal diseases na nagkakos ng malabsorption. So sa autoimmune diseases naman, yun yung corticosteroid, yung nabanggit kanina na ginagamit, and yung sedentary lifestyle also kasama siya kasi mataas din yung risk doon. Para naman sa mga kalalakihan, generally sila yung mga higher peak sa bone mass and delay yung osteoporosis nila onset. And additionally, meron po tayo dyan, nakalagay naman na sa PPT and pwede naman na siyang basahin. Next slide po. So for assessment and diagnostic findings sa osteoporosis, undetectable siya sa x-rays until yung significant bone loss ma-occur siya doon. So meron tayong DEXA or tinatawag na dual energy x-ray absorptiometry or DEXA scan para dito ma-measure yung bone mineral density or BMD, and then ako recommended siya sa mga kababaihan over 65. So para naman sa postmenopausal women over 50 with risk factor, and para naman sa suspected fracture, meron din tayong tinatawag na risk assessment tools like FRAX and MORS na ito yung guide treatment based dun sa 10 years fracture risk. Then yung mga risk factor dito included na yung BMD, factor history, BMI, age, and lifestyle. Then para naman sa laboratory test, meron tayong ditong serum calcium and phosphate. Nakakatulong siya para ma-rule out yung other causes ng bone loss. So next slide po. So sa medical management ng osteoporosis, yan dapat tayo sa diet and nutrition, dapat mag-consume tayo dito ng calcium and vitamin D, rich food like yung mga gatas, cheese, broccoli, and salmon. Then sa pag-exercise, mag-engage tayo ng 20 to 30 minutes of weight-bearing exercise daily and include sa weight training para ma-boost yung bone density and balance. Para naman sa lifestyle, avoid lang natin yung excessive alcohol and mag-quit na sa smoking. Para naman sa mga postmenopausal women, dapat mag-avoid na rin tayo sa estrogen therapy for bone loss prevention. Para naman sa pharmacologic therapy, mag-take lang tayo ng calcium and vitamin D supplements if yung diet natin is insufficient. Then split doses for better absorption and monitor lang yung side effects like constipation. Then mag-take din ng vitamin D, calcium kasi nakakatulong siya para ma-prevent yung fracture sa deficient individuals. So sa medication for osteoporosis, dito yung drug include yung bisphosphonate, estrogen, agonist, antagonist, then receptors, activator of nuclear factor kappa B, ligand or RANKL inhibitors. Then synthetic human PTH analogous for advanced osteoporosis and treatment-resistant patients. So next reporter po.
So for osteomalacia naman, so isa tong metabolic bone disease kung saan inadequate yung bone mineralization. Kaya nagkakaroon ng pain and tenderness. So since inadequate nga yung mineralization ng bone, so syempre soft and weak yan. Kaya painful to touch. So skeletal deformities, pwedeng magkaroon ng unusual appearances like yung bowed legs or kyphosis or yung parang nagka-curve yung spine. Difficulty walking, so siyempre nagkakaroon nga sila ng skeletal changes kaya nahihirapan sila maglakad normally. So nakikita dyan yung waddling gait or yung parang bibe maglakad. In cases of fracture, syempre weak yung bones, mas prone to break. Kaya mas mataas yung chances nila for fractures. So osteomalacia can occur in all ages, pero mas common siya in older adults kasi 'di ba as people age, nagkakaroon ng decline sa ability ng body to synthesize vitamin D from sunlight exposure, which is a major factor ng osteomalacia. So mas higher din yung prevalence nila to underlying medical conditions like yung malabsorption disorders, renal impairment, reduced physical activity, etc., which can contribute to the development ng osteomalacia. So next slide po. So ayan, gerontologic considerations. So yun nga, sinabi ko kanina, kaya mahalaga yung prevention, identification, and management ng osteomalacia in older adults para ma-reduce natin yung incidence ng fracture. So nutritious diet, adequate vitamin D intake, sun exposure, manage underlying condition, promote weight-bearing exercise. So pathophysiology, ayan. So ang major defect ng osteomalacia is deficiency ng activated vitamin D, which is essential para sa proper absorption and regulation ng calcium and phosphate sa body. So para ma-maintain yung homeostasis. So yung mga nagko-contribute sa deficiency ng vitamin D, ayan, pag may GI disorder, na i-impair yung absorption ng vitamin D from diet, liver and kidney disease, kasi di ba yung liver and kidneys natin, yung responsible sa activation ng vitamin D. So kapag may disease na nakaka-apekto dun sa mga organs yun, so this can lead to deficiency ng active vitamin D. So anticonvulsant medication use, so pwede maka-interfere yan sa vitamin D metabolism, yung mga phenytoin, phenobarbital, carbamazepine, and malnutrition. So pag may inadequate intake ng vitamin D, so kaya nagkakaroon ng deficiency. So deficiency of vitamin D, nagli-lead yan sa disruption ng calcium and phosphate homeostasis. And nag-lead din siya sa impaired intestinal absorption ng calcium resulting from in hypocalcemia. So pag nagkaroon ng hypocalcemia, natitrigger ngayon si secondary hyperparathyroidism. Kaya yung parathyroid gland, i-increase niya yung production ng parathyroid hormones para ma-mobilize yung calcium sa bones, para ma-compensate niya yung low calcium level sa blood. So other factors, ayan, severe renal insufficiency, na-impair kasi nito yung ability ng kidney para ma-regulate yung minerals. So ayan, chronic glomerulonephritis, obstructive uropathies, and heavy metal poisoning kasi nakaka-apekto yan sa renal function. So kapag na-disrupt yung homeostasis between calcium and phosphate, nagkakaroon ngayon ng impaired bone mineralization. So yung tinatawag nating hydroxyapatite, so yan yung primary mineral component ng bone, which is composed of calcium and phosphate. So yan yung nagpo-provide ng hardness and rigidity na kinakailangan for bone structure. So in osteomalacia, yung osteoblast, which yung cells responsible for bone formation, so hindi nila ngayon ma-deposit effectively yung hydroxyapatite crystals papunta doon sa bone matrix or yung tinatawag nating osteoid. Kaya nagkakaroon ng accumulation ng unmineralized osteoid, so which leads to weakening ng skeletal structure. So syempre, poorly mineralized yung bone matrix mo or yung osteoid mo, hindi nagkakaroon ng sapat na integrity yung structure, kaya nagiging soft and pliable yung bones, which eventually makes a person prone to deformities, fractures, and skeletal abnormalities, which are the characteristic features and hallmark ng osteomalacia. So next slide. So sa assessment and diagnostic findings, so ayan, sa x-ray makikita mo yung generalized demineralization ng bone. So nagkakaroon ng loss of detail and generalized washout. So pag sinabing washout appearance, yan yung pale, lack of skin pigmentation, dull or lifeless compared sa normal structure ng bone natin. So compression of fracture with indistinct vertebral end phase. So syempre, decrease yung bone density mo, weakened yung bone structure. So weak din sila to compressive force. Kahit yung mga normal daily activities lang, nagre-result na yun ng collapse and deformity ng vertebral bones. Kaya nagkakaroon ng indistinct appearance ng vertebral end plate. So laboratory findings, so nabanggit ko din niya kanina, so hypocalcemia, so low yung phosphorus levels, moderately elevated alkaline phosphatase, so nire-reflect niyan yung high turnover ng poorly mineralized bone as the body attempts to compensate for the lack of mineralization. So low urine excretion of calcium and creatinine, so This may suggest impaired renal handling ng calcium, which further exacerbates yung hypocalcemia na nakikita na nga sa osteomalacia. And bone biopsy, so nakikita dyan yung increased amount of osteoid. So yung sinabi ko nga kanina, pag may increased amount of osteoid, pag may accumulation ng osteoid, so this indicates failure ng mineralization process. So yan sa management. Ang primary goal na sa osteomalacia is ma-reduce yung pain and discomfort ni patient associated with osteomalacia. So, ayan, sa physical, physiological, and pharmaceutical measures, so pwede dyan yung NSAIDs, physical therapy para ma-improve yung muscle strength, flexibility, and balance, and ma-reduce natin yung impact ng softening ng bones ni patient. So, treating underlying cause, so if yung osteomalacia, dahil siya sa vitamin D deficiency, edi i-correct yung vitamin D deficiency through supplementations. If sa malabsorption naman, edi i-address yung underlying GI condition. If related siya sa kidney disease, edi i-manage yung kidney dysfunction, mag-provide ng active form of vitamin D, which is calcitol. So, vitamin D, calcium, or phosphate supplementation. So, ayan yung mga supplements para ma-help natin na ma-replenish yung depleted vitamin D source and ma-support natin yung bone mineralization. So, for instance, sa mga patient na merong intestinal malabsorption, so yung intestines nila, hindi sila maka-absorb ng nutrients or vitamins properly, so they may need to take larger quantities ng vitamin D and calcium. So exposure to sunlight, encourage natin sa patient na lumabas, especially sa midday kung saan mas stronger yung UV radiation. So advise natin sila na mag-expose ng larger skin surface area sa sunlight, so for 20 to 30 minutes per day, unless contraindicated and while avoiding sunburn. So stopping smoking if smoker siya. Syempre kasi 'di ba, may numerous toxins sa cigarettes which can negatively impact bone metabolism and mineralization process. So, same sa alcohol kasi chronic alcohol use can disrupt bone remodeling kaya nagkakaroon ng reduced bone mass and increased risk of fractures. And lastly, yung monitoring and management of persistent issues kasi yung osteomalacia, treatable siya pero pwede siyang mag-reoccur yung symptoms niya kapag bumalik din yung underlying cause, pag nag-stop siya ng treatment or pag nagkaroon ng development ng new underlying conditions. Kaya importante yung regular follow-up visits para ma-monitor yung bone mineral density, serum calcium, and phosphate levels, other relevant parameters. So yung orthopedic braces para ma-support and ma-stabilize yung deformed bone. And yung last resort is yung surgical procedure, yung osteotomy, para ma-correct yung severe bone deformities and improve mobility and function ng patient. So that's the end for osteomalacia.
Ayan. So good day, I'm Neil Cabaltera, and I will be discussing another metabolic bone disorder, which is the Paget's disease, also known as the osteitis deformans. So it is a disorder of localized bone turnover, and ang madalas na apektuhan nito ay yung skull, femur, tibia, pelvic bones, and vertebrae. So yung cause niya is currently unknown, pero it occurs in about 2 to 3% of the population older than 50 years old. And in those population, mas common siya in aging men than in aging women. And noted din yung family history, since if a person has this disease, common din na yung sibling niya is magkakaroon ng ganitong condition din. So for the pathophysiology of the disease, nabanggit ko kanina, mayroon tayong localized rapid bone turnover. In regular bone turnover kasi, meron tayong tinatawag ng osteoclasts, which are the cells responsible for breaking down the bones. And then, ang nakasunod sa kanya is yung osteoblasts, which are the cells na we rebuild yung mga broken down the bones. So, ang ending, magkakaroon ng bago and mas matibay na bones. Pero, in Paget's disease, ang nangyayari is that the osteoclasts is masyadong yung binibreakdown ng mabilis yung bone. Kaya ang tendency ng osteoblast is that mas mag-work siya ng harder to rebuild those new bones. Ang problem dito is that yung bagong bones na nabibuild ng osteoblast, since minadali siya, hindi siya well organized, and yung pattern niya madalas nag-look as jumbled or mosaic in pattern. And since mosaic or jumbled in pattern nga yung bagong nabubuong bones, ang nangyayari is they become structurally weaker and more vascular than a normal bone. So ang tendency is mas madalas na mag-occur yung fractures, and since structurally weaker nga sila, ang tendency is yung bones, especially sa legs, nagbabow down sila, so nagkakaroon ng misaligned hip, knee, and ankle joints. Tapos yung misalignment na yon, pati yung structural weakness ng bones, nag-lead siya to arthritis, knee pain, tsaka back pain. And for the clinical manifestations of the disorder, possible na maging asymptomatic yung patient natin. And madalas na nangyayari is yung discovery ng disease is that nangyayari lang due to an x-ray na ginawa for another condition. Pero pag in-x-ray siya, ang makikita is there's sclerotic changes and cortical thickening of the long bones. And aside from that, nagkakaroon ng skeletal deformity of the skull. Madalas na binabanggit ng mga clients dito is that yung cups nila, yung sombrero na dating cash sa kanila ay hindi na kasya ngayon. And then, possible din na magkaroon ng cranium enlargement. Kaya yung head nila nagiging triangular in shape. And then, possible din na magkaroon ng hearing impairments due to cranial nerve compression and dysfunction due to the bones compressing on the nerves. Bukod pa doon, nagkakaroon din ng waddling gait since yung bones nila sa legs weakened na, ang tendency nagiging yung gait nila nagiging waddling, and then yung spine nagiging rigid siya and nagbe-bend forward. Yung trunk is flexed sa legs to maintain balance, yung arms naka-bent outward and forward, and nagmumukha siyang mahaba compared to the short trunk. May kita yung binabanggit ko dito na naka-bow down, na naka-flex yung trunk towards the legs din sa picture sa ilalim, and yung arms naka-outwards din. And aside from that is that possible din na magkaroon ng since may increased bone vascularity nga, nagkakaroon ng tenderness and warmth over the bones at nagkakaroon din ng high cardiac output failure kasi nag-increase yung vascular bed tsaka yung metabolic demands. And nagkakaroon din sila ng mild to moderate deep and aching pain. Nawala yung assessment and diagnostic findings, pero ang common din na ginagawa natin for Paget's disease is that X-ray talaga yung ginagamit natin for the assessment of the disease, since yung X-ray na yun, ang nare-reveal niya yung areas of demineralization tsaka bone overgrowth. And aside from that, meron din tayong lab test na ginagawa, just as sa serum alkaline phosphate concentration and urine hydroxyproline disorder, since kapag may elevated serum ALP tsaka ng urine hydroxyproline disorder, ang indication siya na mayroong increased osteoblastic activity, and kapag higher yung values ng lab test na yon, mas active yung disease. May ibang exams din na ginagawa tulad ng bone biopsy tsaka bone scan. Yung bone scan, ginagawa natin siya para makita yung extent of disease, and then yung bone biopsy, ginagawa natin siya for differential diagnosis. For the management of the disease naman, NSAIDs yung ginagamit natin for pain management. And then, if merong leg bowing, nagkakaroon na ng gait problems, binibigyan natin sila ng walking aids, ng shoe lifts, and physical therapy. Meron din tayong weight management na since meron ng issue with the bones nga, na weakened bones, so ang tendency, mas nagiging mahirap maglakad and mas stressful siya for the legs and for the feet. So, by reducing the weight management, mas nai-lessen yung stress sa legs and feet ng client. And for symptomatic patients naman, may diets tayo na pwedeng ibigay, such as adequate calcium and vitamin D na recommended along with periodic monitoring. So for fractures naman, mild siya according to the location as stated kanina dun sa nauna nag-report. And kaya dapat mayroong reduction, immobilization, and stability para na-prevent pa yung further fractures saka ma-increase yung healing. And yung total joint replacement as reported earlier, pwede siyang gawin for severe degenerative arthritis tsaka for clients na severe na talaga. Pero tatandaan natin na yung yung joint kasi is a soft bone, and soft bones are not ideal surgical sites. And kapag ginawa yun, prone sila for complications. And lastly, pwede tayo mag-provide ng hearing aids and communication techniques for those na nakaka-experience ng hearing disorder due to cranial nerve compression. For pharmacologic therapy naman and management, meron tayong unang-una yung anti-osteoplastic therapy. So yung pinaka-beneficial for patients kasi nag-reverse siya ng bone turnover, na-reverse yung disease course, nag-relieve ng pain, and nag-improve ng mobility. And next, meron tayong bisphosphonates. Pwede natin silang ibigay kasi nag-stabilize din siya ng rapid bone turnover. And although hindi nga nasosuppress lahat ng symptoms ng Paget's disease, na-reduce naman niya yung serum ALP and urinary hydroxyproline levels na nabanggit ko kanina. And lastly, meron din tayong tinatawag na plicamycin. It is a cytotoxic antibiotics na binibigay via IV infusion and binibigay siya to control the disease. So naka-reserve lang siya for severely affected patients na meron ng neurologic compromise at saka meron ng resistance to therapy. So bakit ba siya naka-reserve? Kasi meron siyang severe side effects. Baka bago natin banggitin yung severe side effects, ano ba yung mga uses niya? Ginagamit siya for reduction of pain, serum calcium, ALP, and urine hydroxyproline levels. Yun yung mga nabanggit ko kayong lab tests kanina. And for the side effects, merong bone marrow suppression, may irritability, agitation, GI upset, diarrhea, nausea, anorexia, weakness, fever, rash, epistaxis, bruising, and hemorrhage. So, kaya siya naka-reserve lang for severely affected patients kasi sobrang dami yung potential side effects. And dahil nga meron siya mga side effects ito, kailangang i-monitor yung hepatic, kidney, tsaka bone marrow functions. Clinical remissions may persist 4 months after discontinuation of the medication. So, that's the end po for Paget's disease. Next disorder na po tayo.
So, proceed tayo sa gout and gouty arthritis. Next slide po. So, for gout and gouty arthritis, yung gouty arthritis, siya yung common form ng inflammatory arthritis. Yung gout naman, it happens when urate, a substance sa body natin, builds up, tsaka nagpo-form siya ng needle-shaped crystals sa joints. Kaya magkakaroon ng pain, swelling, redness, tsaka changes sa movement, tsaka yung paggamit ng affected joint. Yung mga lalaki, sila yung more likely to be diagnosed with gout. And this happening increases with age, body mass index or BMI, alcohol consumption, hypertension, tsaka diuretic use. Next slide po. So for pathophysiology ng gouty arthritis, ito ay cause ng hyperuricemia or increase sa serum uric acid. Siya yung byproduct ng purine metabolism found in high concentrations ng meat products kaya naapekto yung urate levels na isang tao, yung diet, medications, tsaka yung overproduction sa body niya and inadequate kidney excretion. Yung hyperuricemia kasi can lead to urate crystal deposition, increasing the risk ng gout attacks. Tapos yung attacks na to nag-occur when macrophages in joint spaces phagocytize yung urate crystals, triggering an inflammatory response through the secretion of interleukin-1 beta. And this repeated attacks results sa tophi. Siya yung deposits of sodium urate crystals in areas like yung big toe, hands, tsaka ear, and may also lead to kidney stones and chronic kidney disease. Next slide po. So ano nga ba yung clinical manifestations ng gouty arthritis? First is yung acute gouty arthritis, yung tophi, gouty nephropathy, and uric acid urinary calculi. And may 4 phases siya: asymptomatic hyperuricemia, acute gouty arthritis, intercritical gout, tsaka yung pinakamalala is yung chronic tophaceous gout. And we should always remember na yung development ng gout ay connected to how long and how severe hyperuricemia is, which is why yung treatment niya usually begins lifelong after yung pinakauna or yung initial gout attack. And we should also remember na yung frequent initial sign ng acute gouty arthritis is usually seen sa metatarsophalangeal joint ng big toe, pero it can also occur sa tarsal area, ankle, tsaka knee. So sa medical management naman ng gouty arthritis is because the occurrence of gout rises as people get older, dealing with it can become complex. So yung first medical management niya is polarized light microscopy. Ito ay used to confirm the diagnosis of gouty arthritis by examining the synovial fluid from the affected joint. And uric acid crystals are visible kasi inside the polymorphonuclear leukocytes in the fluid during a disease flare-up. And yung second naman is yung medications gaya ng colchicine, and indomethacin or a corticosteroid to use to treat yung acute attacks. And yung third naman is yung uric acid lowering therapy. Treatment to reduce uric acid levels is typically started after the acute inflammation has calmed down to address hyperuricemia, tophi or joint damage, at saka kidney issues. After nagpass na yung sudden attack, uric acid lowering therapy can be considered na. And for additional medications naman, allopurinol and febusoxstat are yung preferred agents for inhibiting xanthine oxidase. And sa management naman between gout attacks also need to include lifestyle changes, gaya ng pag-avoid ng pure and rich foods, weight loss, tapos decreasing din yung pag-take ng alcohol, and uricosuric agents, gaya ng probenicide, may be indicated sa clients with frequent acute attacks. Dahil nakokorrect niya yung hyperuricemia and nadidissolve niya yung mga deposited urates. And pwede rin magamit yung corticosteroids sa clients na walang response sa other therapy. Next slide po. So, for the nursing management is una, syempre, educate natin, tsaka laging ipaalala sa kanila yung about sa gout, verbally, tsaka in writing. And encourage the client also to restrict intake of pure and rich foods nga, yung mga organ meats or botched animal internal organs, game meats, tsaka yung pag-restrict nga ng alcohol. Tapos, syempre, healthy body weight. Tapos, pain treatment gamit yung mga na-prescribe na drugs para sa acute episodes ng gouty arthritis. Tsaka avoiding trauma, stress, alcohol nga, para hindi magkaroon ng pain tsaka inflammation. Tsaka syempre, lastly, medication adherence dahil between acute episodes, yung client may feel well and may discontinue drugs which may lead sa acute attack. Next slide po. And ayun po, dun po nagtatapos and these are our references po. Next. And that's all po. Thank you for listening.